Hello, our mixed media moods fans and other fans who may find themselves on my channel. Our mixed media moods is a monthly challenge hosted by Jen Ingle and myself. She goes by Mixed Media Jen. That was our mood board full of glorious purples and fuchsias and some like kind of highlighty blues and then lots of neutrals, which are my jam. You can see here, this is the project that I'm going to create. Just a couple quick shots. You can see sort of what I have in store. It's really exciting this month. We have Tiffany Smith joining us. She's an incredible mixed media artist and really fits in well with us. So you'll see her project in our list too. Let's get started. I am working on a piece of Canson watercolor paper. It is 9 inches by 12 inches and it comes in a pad with a gum edge that, you just pull the paper off and you have a piece of really nice sturdy watercolor paper. I am covering it in Liquitex gesso and then using my Ranger heat gun to set the gesso in place. You see some streaks there? I had a Stabilo pencil lying right by my underpaper, and so my wet brush picked up some of that Stabilo, and I didn't care. In fact, I actually really like the effect, so I'm going to try that later down the road on another project. I wet my surface pretty heavily with my Wow Studio squirt bottle. It has like this really nice fine mist to it. It's very cool. It doesn't soak my paper, but make sure that everything has some wetness. And then I am using this purple color, and I don't always have the exact product names while I'm recording my voiceover, but just check the subscription box below and you will see the paint types and colors, as well as I have opened up a little Amazon store where I list all of my favorite supplies, tools, mediums by color, mediums black and white, mediums clear, and books, some of my favorite art books. So go ahead and check that out. I think that that's really helpful. The purple color that I used, it is a golden paint and it is a fluid acrylic, so it had quite a bit of movement to it already. And then when I added it to this wet is the wrong term, when I added it to this damp surface, then it really started to sort of spread out, and I used my brush to help it. I splattered a little bit of alcohol ink on the paint to give it some sort of splotchy, I don't mean to say so much, sort of spritzed effects. And then I heat set that with my Ranger heat gun. I came back in with a magenta color by Golden, this time in a high flow acrylic. So fluid acrylic is very wet and runny and moves around on your page, but high flow acrylic has even more of a fluidity to it, and it's much more like an airbrush ink. So the colors, I picked up these colors off the mood board and I spritzed that around on my page the same way I did the first color. And I used my brush to help it along and sort of move it around. And then I dried some areas and did more splattering with alcohol. So it's just 97% isopropyl. Is that how that goes? Yeah, something like that. That'll be in the description too, don't worry. Alcohol, so it's just, whatever you might have in your cupboard. I do keep one in the bathroom and then one in the art room, just so people aren't always like, hey, why do you have all the household supplies in your art studio? Because that's never fun. So then I let everything dry, and I've got this really great background, this mottled effect, almost like marble. It's really cool. All the colors play over each other, and there's white areas showing, and in some areas the colors are much darker, and in some they're more watercolor-like, and it's just a really beautiful effect. So then I cut my pieces in my big 9 by 12 inch background into 6 pieces. They are almost even. I did have to trim some edges because I guess I wasn't paying exactly 100% attention while I was trimming my squares down, but they are essentially 4.5 by 4 inches, so a little bit taller than they are wide. And then I stitched them together with my sewing machine, and I have the Brother Project Runway sewing machine, which will also be in the description below, because I really like this machine. It's super affordable. I just got it in the middle of last year, and it's super affordable. It's between $150 and $200, which is not like a little bit of money, but it's not very expensive when it comes to sewing machines. So for just a few bucks more, like I think the cheapest sewing machine is around $90. For just a few dollars more, I have so many different stitches that I get to play with. It's really cool. So I definitely recommend this machine. I'm going to list it below. You can see here my stitching is really wonky, and it's too wonky in general. Like I wouldn't do this on any other project. I have two different threads going, one off my spool at the top, and then one in my bobbin. So my thread ran out, but not my bobbin. So then I need to use them up. So I'm using two threads at one time, and one of them is kind of cheap. And so the tension in my machine is not 100% right now. And I'm getting these like really gross, wonky threads. At first I didn't like it, but then when I went over everything and I taped my pamphlets to get my little pamphlet pieces together, and then I stitched over that, I thought I'd be able to make this work. So your stitching should not look this wonky. If it does, the tension in your machine is off, and it's really easy to fix. So keep that in mind, okay? But I'm going with it because I already had most of my stitching done before I realized what was happening. I used masking tape to stitch my pages together, and then I stitched around those as well so that then it was really enforced and I can fold my pamphlet open and close very easily. Then I got out my golden Yep, I'm doing good. I got my golden fluid acrylic out in carbon black. And so I buy it in a really large container because I use it for mark making on lots and lots and lots and lots of things. I add a little bit of water to it, and I'm using just like a normal size round, a medium size round paintbrush to do some mark making. I did a little bit of splattering. I used the paintbrush itself to make some sort of the marks that go along the bottom left and then the middle top. And then I put some big stripes in there, and I played back and forth with those stripes to get, in the end, sort of a scritchy effect on them. I was trying out a couple things, and that's what I ended up going with. And so I worked on the inside. Yep, that was the inside. And now I am working on the outside, and I'm going to follow a few of the same steps. On the right-hand side, you can see that my paint is sort of pulling away from itself, and that's because I'm using the same paintbrush that I had dipped into the alcohol. So when that happens, alcohol and water don't mix, and so it's sort of pulling away from itself, and it's a really cool technique or effect. Just be prepared that you should not put that paintbrush back into like the paint bottle itself. You don't want to add alcohol to your paint. Make sure that you're working on a palette or some underpaper where you can have like, your paintbrush has a little bit of alcohol in it, and then you dip it into some paint. And even if your paint is a little watered down, that will help also. If you've been on my YouTube channel in the past, or if you're brand new, welcome also. But I will say that I use a lot of water when it comes to my acrylic paints. I like them to mimic watercolor paints, but I like the permanency of acrylics. That aside, I just punched some holes in my pamphlet, and I threaded through a Tim Holtz elastic band so that my little pamphlet has a closure. And at this point, after I was sort of testing out the closure, I decided that I didn't want all of my stringy threads to be as long as normal, which is kind of crazy because I have some serious long threads on some of my projects. But in this case, they just kept getting stuck in the closure, so I just trimmed them up a bit. Then I got out my handy dandy white Sharpie. You guys, it was I used to use a Posca paint pen, and it was never white enough, and I tried the gel pen, and my gel pens always gummed up, or they always stopped working like 1/10 of the way through the ink, and then it was always wasted money, and it just didn't matter what I did. I could never really get them clean. And then I took a class from Dina Wakely, and Dina uses this white Sharpie paint pen, and I am never going back. I love these paint pens. I have them in all the sizes, and I have lots and lots and lots of them. They are great. They are the whitest white. They're poster paint pens, and they are the water-based ones. It's not even the oil-based one that stinks a lot. So I've been using this to do lots of mark making, splattering. I drew some lines on my hinges. I did some dot marking on the other side. I love that paint pen. Then I just got out a regular graphite pencil, and I'm not going crazy with it in this case. I'm doing a tiny bit of circling, and then really I sort of just highlighted those hinges because I've got all this purple and fuchsia going on, and those hinges are like such a nice contrast, and they become such a great design element to this piece, which I really like because they're a great like stark neutral, that sort of yellow, vintage yellow color that masking tape comes in. I love it a lot, and they're ending up as a really, really cool piece. So this tissue paper that I'm using now, I'm using Fluid Matte Medium by Golden, and I am collaging it down to the top of my project. And the tissue paper is really, really, really cool. And I have had a few questions because I just used it on one other project, my 15-minute a day mini journal pages, and it's such a cool tissue paper. I'm so sorry that I don't have a source for it. It was a gift, and it was a gift to me a few years ago, not even like recently, but like 3 or 4 years ago, from one of my great friends, Michelle Lacar, and she travels all over and has like picks up really cool supplies from different places, and it's not always like a product that will be continually manufactured. So I'm very lucky to have this tissue paper. I have a few pieces left, but any printed tissue paper will be great, and I'm absolutely positive that you can find some sort of tissue paper that has text out there. And then real quick, I did just do some stitching. Stitching is really boring and it takes a long time, so I try not to film the whole thing. But after my stitching was done, so on the front I have stitches that go from left to right, right? So they are horizontal, and it's just a line of them. But I tried really hard to make the back side a design element. So I fed my stitching a very specific way so that I had these offset lines. And then now I'm feeding some wool, 100% wool, Highland wool. I got this when I was in Australia, and you can find something just like it in the US. I just needed to buy art supplies while I was in Australia. It seemed like to make so much sense. So I went to one of their craft stores and picked up some things. But so then I thread that wool back and forth in between and got this really cool little like textile embellishment. And I'm pulling that inspiration from the mood board. Jen found some really great fibers to include in our mood board. It's really beautiful. I'm pretty close to done here. At the end, I just found this. We all have art supplies, right? Craft supplies, whatever makes us happy when we're at the store and we buy it. So I have this little folder, and it had a scalloped edge, and I thought the scalloped edge looked really good. So I cut the scalloped edge off, and then I trimmed it down and used it as a design element in my piece. Then I'm putting it in a couple areas and stapling it on with my Tim Holtz tiny attacher. And then I do the tiny attacher is really, really great because the staples are super tiny and they make the best sort of embellishment or addition to your piece. They add a little bit of an industrial look. But because they're tiny, sometimes the prongs don't close all the way. Just turn it over and use a pair of scissors or a bone folder or something like that to really crease in the prongs so that everything is actually stapled. And then you won't cut yourself either. And I use my Sharpie China marker, which is very waxy and sort of an industrial, almost very grungy, to do a little bit more mark making. So here's the front and the back of the piece total, and then now you can see the front by itself, and we're going to zoom in on all of the panels. So this is the left, this is the middle, and you can see how all those colors and pieces are playing together. Here is a close-up of that masking tape of those hinges. Those hinges make me so happy. And then here's the right. There you can see that stitching I was talking about. It's just a regular DMC. Now here is the front. Is that right? No, I have that. Yeah, here's the front. So this is the inside, basically. There was that really cool weave back stitching. Here's the middle. This is the outside, not the inside. This is the outside. I am terrible this morning. I'm sorry. Getting back into the groove of voiceovers, I guess. Okay, so that was my project. Now this is Jen's. Look at how glorious this is. So vintage and fun. And here's Tiffany's. Tiffany's been doing these really great art journal pages, and we're glad to have her along with us today. So thanks so much for being here. See Jen's video. See Tiffany's video. Subscribe here for more. Check the description box for all the information that you need, and be inspired. Create a video or create a project. Show us. Join our Mixed Media Moods on Facebook. see what's going on. We have a group full of inspiration. And thanks for stopping by.